On a quiet night at 1 a.m, my husband and I were laying in bed. He was fast asleep beside me, and I was reading a book. Suddenly I felt like something was watching me. I looked all around the room, and thankfully I couldn't see anything. I sighed. Thank God. About 20 minutes later, I could hear rustling in the other room. Then I heard a laugh like no other. It sounded deep and crackly, and I instantly got out of bed and woke my wife. Did you hear that?
Hear what?
He said sleepily. I heard a laugh.
It was probably the neighbours. Go to sleep already.
You're probably right. I fell asleep a few minutes later, even though I was still distressed about what I heard. I was having a horrific nightmare that night. I saw what seemed to be a man standing in the corner of our room. The lamp on my bedside table suddenly flickered on. He wasn't all that tall, but he had strangely long fingers with sharp nails. His head was slightly tilted to the right with a massive grin that never faded. And if that wasn't weird enough, his eyes looked like they had been carved out with a blunt knife. And all of a sudden, he ran up the wall onto the ceiling until he was directly above me. I was paralysed. He reached out one arm until his sharp nail was resting in between my eyes. He laughed so loud that it brought me out of my paralysis. And that's when I woke up. I was so horrified. I quickly jumped up and sat on the side of my bed, panting loudly and looking all around the room, still frightened about my nightmare. My husband swung open the door, holding our baby in his arms.
You're finally awake,
he said cheerfully, before he noticed the frightened look on my face. He rushed over and sat next to me.
Bad dream?
He said worryingly. That laugh and all those noises from last night, they weren't from next door. I saw him in my dream, I said while he rolled his eyes.
Your mind is just playing tricks on you. It's nothing to worry about.
It all seemed so real. I felt everything and I couldn't wake up. I know this wasn't just a dream. He sighed and walked away. Before leaving the room, he turned and reminded me that he was going away for the weekend. I completely forgot. My heart skipped a beat and I felt sick. I was even more scared than before. You can't leave me, not until this is all over.
What's all over? I told you there wasn't anything wrong in the first place. It's all in your head.
He said, sounding angrier and angrier by the second. Maybe he was right.
I guess so. Let me go make some breakfast.
I turned around as my husband was leaving the room, only to notice my son, Brayden, staring at the same corner where I saw the man in my dream. I convinced myself that he was just too tired and couldn't possibly know what was happening, but I just felt like he knew. Just before they left the room, Brayden turned around and looked at me, seeming shocked as I did. At that point, I knew something was wrong. As we were in the hallway, I heard a chuckle coming from the bedroom. It sounded exactly like last night, but only Brayden and I reacted. He looked at me and started to cry. I picked him up and hugged him tightly, then looked at my husband. It seemed like he couldn't hear the disturbing laugh, or if he could, he just didn't care. With a butter knife. He looked at me like I was going insane. He sighed and walked away before leaving the room. He turned. Do you need help packing then? I asked sadly.
I guess so. Let me go make some breakfast. I do.